Alright guys, what's going on? Today I wanted to talk about Apple and their plans for 2022 upcoming and how I think it's going to affect the stock price, all that good stuff. None of this is financial advice. I'm talking about a company over Bloons Tower Defense gameplay. You know it's for entertainment. Without further ado, let's go. Alright, now ladies and gentlemen, I do have to say that I personally am a fan of Apple as a company. You know, I think they make good products, I can't lie. That being said, they did have a pretty lackluster 2021 new product-wise. The stock was on an absolute tear, but they didn't really announce a whole lot of new stuff, so hopefully that's going to change. And I found this article I wanted to talk about. Apple set to step up product launches in 2022 after modest 2021. Which, you know, we'll see how it fares for the stock price. Sometimes they overflood the market a little bit with new products. It tends to not do too hot. That being said, considering the absolute tear they've been on for the last few years, I think new products might do pretty okay. We all know there's enough people out there that are like such big Apple fanboys, they would literally go sell plasma for a new iPhone. I don't think I'm that addicted, you know. I don't buy a new iPhone every year. I don't always have a new iPad. That being said, you know, there is a lot of people out there that will literally shell out an arm and a leg just to get the newest technology from them. After a modest set of devices launched in 2021, Apple is set for a strong 2022 with new iPhones, AirPods, and potentially a VR headset, and the company is also giving top engineers bonuses of up to $180,000, while also having new limitations imposed on them in New York City as they are responding to the Omicron surge. Alright, so overall I think this is kind of a mixed message here. I think new AirPods, new iPhones, VR headset, that's all a step in the right direction, especially with how hype Metaverse is. I could see that doing well. The only thing that is kind of worrying that it seems like they're kind of trying to brush over in this article so far is the fact that they're having to offer $180,000 bonuses to engineers to keep them on staff. I'm just saying usually when a company starts having to give out almost $200,000 bonuses just to convince people not to go work somewhere else, something in the company tends to not be working the way it's supposed to be. I'm just saying, people used to be lining up to work for Apple. If you're having to give them $250,000 to not quit, that's not a very good sign. I'm not a financial expert or anything, I'm just trying to read the obvious tea leaves in the room, alright? By revenue, 2021 was the most successful year in Apple's history, but its product lineup had some solid additions, namely the MacBook Pro. It wasn't a smash hit year of introductions. Hopefully that will change in 2022. Let's recap last year's product releases, which started out in April with AirTags, the new Apple TV, iPad Pros, and the iMac. So, you know, overall, if you consider the fact that they didn't really release a whole flurry of new products that did incredibly well, and it was still the best year by revenue, you would think increasing the release of products, maybe a new VR headset or something, could only mean good news. The only thing that I could see happening, which, you know, it happens to every company at a certain point, is just oversaturation. Like, if they add another pair of new AirPods, what? 5 different AirPods now that you can get. They got to discontinue the old ones finally, maybe. That's the only problem I could really see them starting to have, is just literally getting to the point where it's like, okay, Apple, we get it, you know, how many iPad Pros are you guys going to release in the span of 2 years? And like I said in the beginning, there's obviously going to always be somebody out there willing to just pay hand over foot to just get anything from Apple because they're addicted to it. It's like their heroin. But, you know, I do think they have to start maybe being just more careful about the products they introduce, because when Apple makes a good product, it's really incredible. Like AirPods have just become the new normal. But when Apple flops on a product, my goodness gracious, do they flop. In June, Apple had a fairly subdued worldwide developer conference. It was no comparison to the prior year when the company announced its own Mac chips and a redesigned Mac OS. Instead, the latest conference ushered in iOS 15, watchOS 8, and Mac OS Monterey with several changes, but none that stood out individually. Yeah, I just feel like Apple's normal flow, thankfully, is like a year of a bunch of crazy changes and then a year of kind of more subdued, quiet ones. That being said, I also just think we've got to be getting to the point where the appetite for, like, new products in the same way we've had for the last 2 years has got to change a little bit. Everybody's been locked inside. They've really had nothing to spend money on but technological gadgets. Things have been closed. There hasn't really been a whole lot of stiff competition for Apple to separate people from their money from. But I do think as this year kind of goes back to normal, hopefully, and things kind of reopen, you're going to see people just not having as much disposable income to be spending solely on technology. The Mac chips was absolutely a good innovation, don't get it twisted. You know, they took a risk dumping Intel. It definitely paid off, but yeah, I do think it's going to be hard to match that level of change. Maybe they're going to be able to pull it out of their back pocket. They tend to be pretty good at that. But yeah, it is kind of a situation where if they don't have as great of a year this year after the last 2 incredible years they've had, you can't really be too mad at the company. That's kind of just how it works. This year should be a lot stronger. The company has a bevy of new Pro Macs in the works based on the M1 Pro and M1 Max chips that are inside the MacBook Pro. That includes a smaller Mac Pro with up to 40 CPU cores and 128 graphics cores, a new Mac Mini, and a large screen iMac Pro. I'd expect Apple to finish its transition to its own silicon from Intel chips as early as June at WWDC 2022. Also, look out for the biggest MacBook Air redesign in the product's history, and an updated entry-level MacBook Pro, a new iPad Pro with wireless charging, given that the performance of the iPad Pro is so strong, and the M2 chip is still a bit far away from launch. I wonder if Apple will stick it with the M1 or wait for the M2. So overall, I do think the new products sound good. 40 CPU cores, pretty impressive. I can't lie. The M1 Pro and the M1 Max chip does sound pretty impressive. I am going to say overall, I'm feeling this year cautiously optimistic for Apple. Don't get it twisted. I think they're going to sell a whole lot of crap. They're going to print money. But after how incredibly strong 2020 and 2021 was, I wouldn't be surprised if this year they kind of had a little bit of a cooling off effect. And that's all right. You know, I do personally have some Apple stock. I'm not selling it. I just don't know that I could fully say in absolute confidence that I would personally be putting 100% of my paycheck into it still. It's kind of at a pretty good point in my opinion. I think it's definitely going to grow. It's definitely going to make a lot of money. I think long term putting money in Apple makes sense. I'm not a financial advisor, obviously, so take this all with a grain of salt. You know, this is for entertainment. That being said, I do think its performance the last 2 years naturally has to cool down a bit. Even if they start doing 40 CPU cores and new MacBook Pros and all that stuff, that definitely is going to make an impact. They're going to sell a lot more. I just don't know if the natural cooling off of the economy and people going back to normal is the best combination for a company like Apple. Apple gives top talent bonuses of up to $180,000 not to leave for Meta. In recent months, Apple engineers have been leaving for Meta Platforms, formerly Facebook, which has offered larger salaries and more work from home flexibility. What's Apple doing to stop the brain drain? Issuing unusual restricted stock unit bonuses to about 10 to 20% of engineers within its hardware and silicon engineering divisions. So yeah, on top of just, all the demand that was pulled forward the last 2 years, everything that I said previously, it tends to not be a great sign when companies start to poach your talent and you start having to issue bonuses. And listen, to the 10 to 20% of engineers getting the bonuses, I'm sure they're pretty hyped, they're pretty happy. But the rest of that workforce, might be looking around trying to flee for a better ship if they didn't get the bonus. Overall, I do think it's just going to be incredibly more competitive in technology going forward. I think if Apple's going to do a VR headset, they're just competing directly with Facebook and Oculus at that point, so there's going to be a lot of talent back and forth. But, that's one of the reasons why I'm I think Apple's going to have a good year. It's a great company. I don't think there's anything fundamentally wrong with it. I just don't know if it can do as good as it did last year. Anyways, though, that's just my 2 cents. Obviously, like I said, none of this is financial expertise. I'm talking about this over Bloons gameplay. Even the new products that seem promising, I think it'll definitely sell well. I'm not saying they're not going to be a success. But yeah, overall, that's just what I wanted to talk about. Let me know in the comment section down below how you think Apple's going to do this upcoming year, 2022. Are you guys hyped? You guys not big Apple fans? Let me know. I'd love to hear about it. But on that note, that'll do it. If you really want to help me out, be sure to press the like button. Let me know in the comment section down below what you thought. And of course, subscribe if you're new and turn on notifications. I talk about stuff like like this every day. During the week, I cover stock market news, all that good stuff, so subscribe, turn on notifications. If you want to be an absolute unit, you can check out the intro song link down below, along with a link to my podcast, The Scuffed Cast, or you could use code SCRUBBY at the G Fuel checkout. Great way to get yourself some G Fuel, also get a discount at the same time, help me out. And of course, the other link in the description is a link to the merch store, so if you want to go ahead and cop yourself a t-shirt, you know, I definitely would not mind at all. I'd appreciate it. But yeah, on that note, thank you all so much. Like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. Don't get anyone pregnant. If you do, make sure they're hot. And hopefully I'll see all of you guys next time with another video. I'm out. Peace.